What you're looking at is an incantation bowl, one of several hundred examples discovered in Mesopotamia. Dating somewhere between the
What?
500s and
They put like
700s
messages and stuff,
CE,
or
they're
like
typically
satanic stuff.
shallow clay bowls around the size of a cereal bowl. And as you can guess from the name, incantation bowls,
Oh, like
they're
spells.
covered in magical formulas intended to ward off demons or protect against misfortune. These incantations usually start from the rim and spiral inward toward the center, where you'll often find a little drawing of a demon, sometimes tied up in chains, symbolizing what the bowl will
Hell
do
no.
to the demon. Some of these demon drawings specifically seem to depict and target a female demon. While many are familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, a lesser-known thread in medieval Jewish folklore popularized the idea that Eve was not Adam's first wife, but
What?
rather he was initially paired with a demonic figure named Lilith. But who exactly was
happened to her?
Lilith? Where did this idea come from? And
they
what
divorce?
about her compelled these communities to resort to magic to protect
hell
themselves
nah.
against her? Traces of the character
Must have been
Lilith
cold.
stretch as far back as 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamian demonology. The name Lilith itself probably derives from the Sumerian word Lil, most often translated as wind or
Lil?
spirit, and the Akkadian words
Bruh.
Lilu and Lilitu, a
Is that why rappers be naming themselves like Lil whatever? They're talking, bro, they're spirits! Bruh, that's why they be killing each other. Well, I mean, a spirit doesn't have to be like, you know, a demon or something. I think it's also a drink. Maybe the wind. Maybe you're talking about the wind. Maybe those rappers are like wind prefix, whatever. Because they're really just relaying the messages that the wind are telling them. Because they truly are like, you know, one of the few people who can understand what the wind is saying to them. And they're just, you know, interpreting it for us. That's like very admirable.
class of male and female demons, respectively. Though very little is known about how these beings were understood in ancient Mesopotamia. Ancient Akkadian medical texts blame Lilu-type demons for all sorts of diseases and physical conditions. Generally in these texts, these demons victimize people of the opposite sex, Lilu attacking women, Lilitu attacking men. For example, one medical text attributes seizure-like symptoms to Lilu and Lilitu. First, it describes the symptoms.
Why they be
If,
hating,
when a
like-
state of confusion comes over him, he rolls the whites of his eyes, and blood flows from his nose. Then the text offers an explanation for the symptoms. For a woman, Lilu. For a man, Lilitu. In other words, these
But
demons
why?
are causing the problem. Another text blames them for fevers. If, when it afflicts him, he continually cries out, my insides, he opens and shuts his eyes, he has fever, the tips of his fingers and toes are cold, and
Just
if you
take
try to make
Tums.
that patient talk, he does not answer. It attributes the symptoms to the hand of Lilu. Other ancient Mesopotamian texts suggest that Lilu demons were believed to be the unhappy ghosts of young men and women who died prematurely, and thus doomed to wander the
Aw.
earth unfulfilled. These texts
Yeah.
especially focus on young women who died before having sex or died before having kids, and thus they terrorize young men in this limbo state.
Not
One
missing
text
on
reads,
anything.
R. Lily slips in a man's
I'll
window.
never have a
Young
kid.
girl not fated to be
Like,
married.
for my own body,
Young
I
woman
mean.
who was never impregnated.
I'm fine
Young
with that.
woman
Like,
whose garment
I don't need to
pin
get
a
pregnant.
good man never loosened.
well, no,
The
Zex
R.
tried
Lily
it, but
mentioned here,
not for
or
me.
maiden lily, apparently were a type of unhappy, wandering spirit associated with negative sexuality. Here, the reference to the demonic figures slipping in through a man's window suggests that they were considered a type of succubus,
Bro,
a female demon who seduced.
that'd be scary as hell, bruh. Like, imagine just be sleeping or whatever. You're on like the second floor, and then you see like a head pop through like your window. You're just trying to sleep, bruh, and these things be like succubing or succubus, bruh. They be like eating your soul, like through your butthole. I saw this on the interwebs one time because I saw something, or like I read an article or something, where Elvis Presley was really alive. Like he never died, and like he retired at like a retirement home, and like he kept telling people he was like, I'm the real Elvis Presley. But then people didn't believe him. They thought he was like the imposter, because you know people be doing that, like impostering for like a living of Elvis. And then he was like, bro, whatever. But then he found out that the nurses worshipped, I think they were like succubuses, and they worshipped the mummy. And then they were like sucking the soul of the old people through their butt holes. The soul, the hole. And bruh, he like fought it and he won. He beat the mummy. I read this somewhere. You guys should read more stuff because, like, you know, the media be lying. Like, these stories don't be getting through to, like, you know, people. And this is what we should really be worrying about, in my opinion. I'm not sure though. Let me know.
Seduces and traps and has sex with men while they're asleep. The scholar Elise Zomer argues that these demons were demonic personifications of sexual envy, the unhappy ghosts of people who never found sexual satisfaction while alive. So it follows that the ritual strategy to deal with these spirits was to perform a symbolic marriage. Rituals called for making figurines of a male and female Lilith demon and then performing a marriage between the two figurines. The aim of this ritual is to cause the two demons to lose interest in their human victims. In the past, scholars argued that the so-called Bernie relief, a Babylonian representation of a female divine figure, actually depicts a Lilith. However, most now believe that it's probably Ishtar or some other goddess. Notice how we've been talking about a type or category of demon, not a single entity named Lilith.
Oh yeah.
This holds true for most of her history. Only in later Jewish traditions does Lilith begin to crystallize as a distinct character with her.
She manifests as like single individual encounters, or like that's how people thought of it as, not necessarily like as an entity. Was she more of like a concept explaining all these weird things? And then people started attributing it all to her. And then instead of being like an abstract concept, she became like a thing. Like, I guess like a graspable thing, I suppose.
Own narrative. But even in this early phase, there are named figures that seem to have influenced the later development of the singular figure Lilith. An epic poem called Gilgamesh and the Halupu Tree, which dates to around 2000 BCE, seems to refer to a female demon named Lilake, though scholars dispute the translation. What's more widely accepted is that Lilith was inspired by the Mesopotamian demonic goddess Lamashtu, known for attacking infants and women during childbirth. Archaeologists have discovered dozens of amulets from ancient Mesopotamia designed to protect people from Lamashtu. She's often depicted with animal and human features, sometimes with a lion's or bird's head, covered in feathers with talons for feet. Many of the incantations specifically highlight the threat that she presents to birthing mothers and newborns. An old Assyrian Lamashtu incantation regarding stillbirth says she is fierce, fearsome, divine. The daughter of Anu is a she-wolf. She intercepts the running youth.
Was she a werewolf?
She utterly smashes the tiny ones. So in this earliest layer of Lilith's history, we find a strong focus on the dangers of childbirth and infancy, which were among the most dangerous phases of life in antiquity. Though reconstructing precise stats from antiquity is challenging, the Assyriologist Jonathan Volk estimates that infant mortality was around 20 to 30% in the pre-modern period. Maternal mortality
We're back.
Undoubtedly was high as well. Lilith demons and Lamashtu arose to personify these deep-seated fears, embodying anxieties about the most vulnerable people in the most perilous moments of human existence. And Lilith, in later Jewish mythology, appears to be
not all of it. Like, obviously, I do believe in like spirits and stuff. Not even just the drink, but it's like, it is crazy how throughout history all this paranormal stuff, or just whatever, was a way to rationalize, I guess, how your emotions, that you, like, they would internalize it, and this was the manner that they would rationalize it in. It was like, oh, it's, you know, it's a spirit, it's demons, it's that, or the, bruh. The internet just went out. Great.
A composite of these figures and anxieties, blurring the baby-snatching role of Lamashtu with the negative sexuality of the ghostly Lilu spirits. So how do we go from ancient Mesopotamian demonology to Lilith as we know her today in ancient Jewish mythology? The story of Lilith as Adam's first wife actually has no basis in the Hebrew Bible. The word Lilith does appear in the Hebrew Bible, but only once. A single mention in Isaiah chapter 34. In this chapter, the God of Israel wreaks vengeance on the neighboring kingdom of Edom, turning it into a wasteland. Verse 14 paints a picture of the devastation, a desolate land inhabited only by wild animals and demonic creatures. Wildcats shall meet with hyenas. Goat demons shall call to each other. There also Lilith shall repose and find a place to rest. The text doesn't offer any more detail. Apparently the audience knew enough about Lilith that the author didn't need to. But reading between the lines, Lilith seems to be a wilderness demoness of some sort, or at least a demon who's comfortable hanging out in a barren wasteland. But the actual translation here is disputed. Some scholars argue that the word Lilith here is not the proper name of a specific demon, but like the Lilitu of ancient Mesopotamia, refers to a type or class of demon, and thus should be translated as the Lilith lowercase l. Others argue that Isaiah 34:14 doesn't refer to a demon at all, but rather some sort of nocturnal creature or bird, like an owl. We see this disagreement play out in different translations of the Bible. The NIV translates the word as night creatures, the ESV night bird, and the KJV as screech owl. Though the NRSV translation generally reflects the majority position among scholars, and it's worth mentioning that the supernatural translation caught on very early. When the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek, the ancient Greek translators rendered the word Lilith as a type of centaur. And the Latin translation of the verse translated Lilith
so it wasn't
as
just like
Lamia,
a concept of,
baby-killing
I guess, like the
monster in
wilderness,
Greco-Roman mythology. So
whatever
while
it
there
was.
is a great deal of uncertainty about this passage today, at least in antiquity this verse was assumed to refer to a supernatural creature of some sort, if not a demon specifically.
Like always?
So throughout the Bronze and Iron Ages, we get glimpses of a type of child-killing, anti-fertility, anti-maternal female demon, sometimes conceptualized as a singular entity like Lamashtu. This figure finds its way into the demonology of Second Temple Judaism.
How scary it must have been to like even get pregnant, back in those times. Not only just because like, probably the conditions of your child being born on your body. I mean, you don't have the best medicine, I guess. So maybe you can get like infected and stuff like that and just die totally. And also your baby can just die, which is like horrific to think about. Although maybe they thought about it differently back then. I know the Greeks for sure, but yeah.
Example, Lilith specifically and Liliths generically appear in the Dead Sea Scrolls. For example, check out this exorcistic hymn. And I, the sage, sound the majesty of his beauty, to terrify and confound all the spirits of destroying angels, and the bastard spirits, the demons, and Lilith. Here, God is called upon to ward away a parade of evil spirits. Bastard spirits is likely a reference to the offspring of angels and humans as described in the Book of Enoch. Lilith makes an appearance as a singular entity, but with little detail revealing how she was conceptualized by the Dead Sea Scrolls community. Other scrolls show that some ancient Jews continue to view Lilith.
So she just appeared, like, before she was a concept, a broad concept, that explained like a lot of these supernatural happenings and such. When did she become the genuine embodiment, like physical embodiment of like, Lilith and stuff like that? How did that come about? Like one day just someone was like, oh yeah, she is definitely real and very demonic.
Liliths as a type of demon as well. For example, if you look up Isaiah 34:14 in the Great Isaiah Scroll found at Qumran, you'll find the plural Liliot, Liliths, which suggests a generic category of demon rather than a...
Talking about Lily, have you guys tried Lily's chocolate chip? Do you guys... I really like those chocolate chips, chocolate morsels. I think they're sugar-free, 55% cacao. It's pretty good, that antioxidant. Do you guys know if those are, demonic and stuff of that nature? Man, because, well, all I'm saying is, like, if it's demonic, I'll try my best to not eat them. But, bro, I'll eat, like, half a cup of... I'll eat half a cup of those, just to do it, bro. They're delicious.
Specific being. But we don't have much more evidence from this period. She becomes a much bigger deal in the early centuries of Rabbinic Judaism. The Babylonian Talmud mentions Lilith on several occasions, where she's conceptualized as a humanoid female demon with wings and long hair.
Oh,
One
hell
rabbi
nah.
even
That's
proposes
that's
banning people
scary,
from
bruh.
sleeping alone at night, warning that anyone who sleeps alone in a house will be seized by Lilith.
Oh
But
my
she
God.
wasn't just a concern for the rabbis.
Stay living
Let's
with your
return to
folks.
those incantation bowls. This is a body of evidence showing that Jewish communities
A
in
bowl?
Mesopotamia recognized her as a demonic.
You think they like ate food off of that and stuff like that just to disrespect her? I feel like, is that a good method of like warding her off? Or do you put the incantations to spawn her in? I feel like I most likely would not want to spawn her in. You know, I don't know about you. Maybe you get freaky down like that, getting those succubus, you know, and stuff like that. But me personally, probably not. I'll pass, is what I'll say. But hey, don't yuck someone's yum.
Foe in everyday life, leading them to develop ritual strategies to nullify her. Now, different religious communities used incantation bowls, like Mandeans and Christians, but most of these bowls were composed in Babylonian Jewish Aramaic, and we see a ton of overlap between rabbinic texts and these bowls. Not only do they date to around the same time that the Talmud was completed, but rabbis may have been the ritual specialists who helped to compose the incantations. Many of them were found in what's now south-central Iraq. A large and vibrant Jewish community must have lived there in late antiquity, who apparently turned to these incantation bowls as a way to battle Liliths. Many of these formulas are symbolic divorce papers, in which the practitioner divorces from a Lilith. One reads, "This is the deed of divorce of..."
You think like that's how they divorced back in the day? Like they were like, oh yeah, you know, we're broken up and stuff. And the dude, bro, that's toxic as hell, bruh. The dude compares the chick to like Lilith or like a demon or something. Like, here are the papers serving the divorce of the Lilith. You know, you're divorcing a demon. Is that like a sneak diss? Like, bro, this is like prehistoric sneak diss, bruh. The dinosaurs must have seen this too, bro. This is crazy.
The Lilith. Liliths, male Lilith and female Lilith, you are stripped naked. Your mother is the Lilith Palhadad. Go out from the house and from the dwelling and from the body of this Hormuz, son of Imma, and from his wife. From this text we can learn a few things. Presumably a guy named Hormuz was concerned about Lilith demons, so he commissioned this bowl to protect his house, himself, and his wife. The symbolic divorce papers mention Liliths, generically, which continues to refer to a species of demon and not a specific figure. In fact, in this incantation, there's a Lilith with a name, the Lilith Palhadad, much like how other demons in Jewish and Christian mythology have specific names, like Beelzebul or Asmodeus. But we also learn that Liliths were believed to be male or female, which harkens back to Bronze and Iron Age Mesopotamia with Lilu and Lilichu demons. Though the scholar Nama Velazny argues that the sex of Lilith demons is often ambiguous. They could transform depending on who they victimize. A Jewish incantation bowl explicitly says this. This is an amulet against the Liliths that haunt the house of this Ephra, who do violence and trample and scourge and mutilate, who appear to humans, to men in the likeness of women, and to women in the likeness of men. With the formula I've written against thee, evil Lilith, whatsoever name be thine. So again, this guy Ephra, who commissioned this object, assumes that Liliths are a species of demon that presumably shapeshift. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground so far in this video, from ancient Mesopotamia up through the early century.
I've been saying this, bruh. Lizard people are real. Like, I've been saying this since the beginning of time, probably. Okay, well, not time, but maybe, like, my time. Maybe even, you know, when I was floating around as a concept before I was born. Is, you know, the Nephilim do indeed exist. I've been to Domino's before. You've been to Domino's? I mean, I think I told that story. But I'm sorry. This is filmed in the same day, I swear.
Of rabbinic Judaism. And over the course of 2,500 years, we see surprising consistency in the belief in demonic figures known for killing babies or sexually victimizing people. But notice something that's completely missing from all of this evidence. The whole notion that Lilith was the first wife of Adam is absent. Where did this come from? This myth emerges in the early medieval period, first appearing in the alphabet of Ben Sirah, an anonymous Jewish
What?
text dating
What
somewhere
even is
between
that?
the 8th century up to the year 1000. The text expands on the Garden of Eden story found in Genesis. In the text, God creates Lilith out of the dust of the earth, just like Adam, but she challenges Adam's authority. Specifically, she refuses to be on the bottom during
Damn.
sex. She says because they're both made from the same earth, they are equals. When Adam refuses to let her on top, she pronounces the ineffable four-letter name of God and flies away to the Red Sea.
Whoa.
3 angels pursue her to bring her back, but she stands her ground. After they threaten to drown her, she says, "Leave me. I was created only to cause sickness to infants." So here we see a mythical explanation for why she's associated with child.
Demons really be evil, bruh. But like, what was the point of, targeting these, children or like these babies, bruh? Infants. I mean, I guess, it must suck being a woman because women, they have period cramps and stuff. And I, for one, am 6'5". I also have dreads. It's underneath somewhere here. I stand up for women rights. But this is too far. You can't be a feminist and be like, oh, I'm gonna murder babies. Or maybe you can't. I don't think it's socially acceptable though. I'll have to get back to you guys on that one. I'm not sure. Anyone in the comments, let me know. In my opinion, that's pretty demonic, but to each their own.
Killing. We next see a mythical justification to use anti-Lilith amulets. The angels and Lilith eventually reach a settlement with her swearing that she will spare infants that wear an amulet. Overall, Lilith in the alphabet of Ben Sirah is an evil,
amulet.
defiant anti-mother, killing human babies while at the same time birthing hundreds of demonic babies. So where did this legend come from? Well, it obviously draws on previous ideas that Lilith or Liliths in
'Cause
general
Lilith
are
is
responsible
also
for
just
killing
all
infants
demons, right?
and associated with negative sexuality as a succubus, requiring symbolic divorce papers to remove her evil presence from your life. But the notion that she
Dang.
was Adam's wife seems to emerge from a perceived plot hole in the book of Genesis. Scholars have long recognized that there are 2 creation stories in Genesis, and thus 2 accounts of the creation of humanity. Genesis
being?
1 simply says, "So God created humans in his image. Male and female, he created them." While in Genesis 2 it says, "Then the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life," followed by the whole story of God creating Eve out of Adam's rib while he sleeps.
Oh,
Some
that's where
Jewish
that came
scholars
from.
must have recognized that these are
My
2
grandma told me
creation
about
myths and
that,
attempted to
but I
harmonize
know it was
them by
that
saying that
from
they
that.
describe the creation of 2 different women, the first being Lilith and the second being Eve. I'd argue that this version of Lilith is the best known version to modern audiences, but her identity continued to evolve in Jewish mythology in the following centuries. Later in the medieval period, she became very prominent in the Jewish mystical tradition known as Kabbalah.
Bro, what is that
Now,
guy
there are
even
several
doing,
myths
bruh?
about Lilith, and
Is he holding the science? Is that like Jewish science? Or is this a Jew? What are they called? Like the Judeo technology, right? Judeo tech? Bro, is this guy holding the OG Judeo tech machinery? I bet he probably put some like tobacco in that, He smoked tobacco. Jewish people be bad.
Kabbalistic texts, but one notable mythological development is to pair her with the evil figure Samael, a somewhat similar figure to Satan in Christianity. In this mythological narrative, Samael is
Samuel.
not a second husband after Adam, but
He's
rather her
rotund,
original
but
primordial
I
mate.
don't think he was
In
satanic.
the words of the scholar of Jewish mysticism, Joseph Dan, this created a kind of parallelism between Adam and Eve and Lilith and Samael. But perhaps the most dramatic transformation in her history happened not all that long ago in the 20th century. Lilith was rebranded from a malevolent figure to one worthy of respect, a second-wave feminist icon symbolizing independence, defiance, and empowerment.
Yeah,
In 1976,
that's cool
a
and
group
all.
of
And like, I totally support, stopping women having periods and stuff like that because they be hurting. But I'm not completely sure if murdering infants is quite the way to go about it. Like I said before, I'm not quite sure, you know, because I know people be doing crazy stuff to infants, like putting them in front of, you know, a TV or a tablet or something. That might as well be infanticide, right? Because you're like brain rotting your kid from that age. They're legally considered brain dead, right? Well, that's what I heard on the television and the interwebs when I was an infant. I'm speaking from experience, so just so you know.
Jewish women founded a magazine that aimed to be a Jewish alternative to secular feminist publications, with a mission to amplify Jewish feminist voices and to be a feminist changemaker in and for Jewish communities.
Should I become Jewish?
They decided to name the magazine Lilith. In the words of one of the founders, Susan Weidman Schneider, the cover of the first issue featured our artist version of the Jewish superwoman,
Jewish people are
who managed to amalgamate almost all possible roles.
Is it a matter of fact that people are
mother,
just Jewish?
scholar, doctor, and server of chicken soup, balancing it all on a tightrope while wearing a fancy dress.
Lilith
In that first
served
issue, they
chicken
address
soup?
the Lilith question. Why choose the
The chicken
name
soup?
Lilith? Is Lilith a model for Jewish women? They conceptualized her not as a wild-haired, vengeful witch, but as a powerful female figure who radiates strength, assertiveness, and refuses to cooperate in her own victimization. Some of the very qualities that defined
BBW?
her as wicked in the alphabet of Ben Sirah, her independence and refusal to submit, were reclaimed
King
as positive
Adonis
traits. By the end of the
first.
20th century, this feminist rebrand of Lilith made its way
not
outside of
approved.
Jewish communities and found a new home, especially in contemporary pagan circles. Do a quick YouTube search and you'll find contemporary witches publishing how-to guides on how to work with Lilith in one's daily
What the
ritual
hell?
practice. And
What?
this positive
People be doing this in the
reinterpretation
modern day, bruh? Or do you know that she be infanticiding, bruh? Like she be killing babies unless you put like an amulet on them? Do people be knowing this and like still be like worshiping her and stuff and like the devil demons? And like she's a succubus, so she be like, I thought a succubus was a plant. I could be wrong. Okay, but anyways, she's definitely, maybe, perhaps, potted in a plot of land somewhere. She's growing. She's murdering babies. And she's getting divorced a million times. Or at least getting served divorce papers on like bowls. Are we serious? Like, this is the type of stuff that should be doing, bruh. You really, this is like a deadbeat mom. Because, I mean, on the one hand, she likes it when people are not moms. On the other hand, she be birthing like crazy, right? Because like, Lilith here, Lilith that, Lilith you, Lilith me, you know? She just be Lilithing. And she be hating the babies, even though she be putting them out. And she be getting divorced, so like, you know, they be paying all this child support to her. She must be rich. It really, bruh, it really be the deadbeats that just want the money, bruh. Like, I bet she's on crazy, like, government food stamps and stuff, you know, like benefit programs. She doesn't do anything other than murder babies and get divorced and have babies. If you worship Lilith, I think maybe you have to evaluate your life a little bit. Oh, but that's sweet coming from me, you know?
might be reflected in broader American society as well, because the name Lilith has skyrocketed in popularity since the early 2010s. According to the biggest baby name websites, Lilith was around the 900th most popular name for girls in 2010, and jumped to the 270th most popular name by 2022. So for most of her 4,000 years of history, Lilith was an unambiguously malevolent figure, dangerous specifically to women. But here in the 21st century, we're witnessing an ironic twist in her narrative. Lilith has proven not only to be a surprisingly enduring character.
A good lesson to take away, you know, is like, bruh, people will twist history to fit whatever they want it to be. Like, I guess they're to push whatever agenda they want to push. Historically, Lilith, even before being embodied as a physical lady demon succubus, was a concept that embroiled a very large, I guess, topic, because I mean, demons, wilderness. I assume demons mostly, but she was kind of an abstract concept that roughly, I guess, like covered all demonic activity, specifically like succubuses and stuff. Then she manifested as like a character or whatever, and then she started murdering babies, getting divorced, having more babies, and abandoning them. She's a deadbeat mom, and people change the narrative because for whatever purpose they're like, yeah, it's so empowering, guys, let's have babies, abandon them, and murder random people's babies and get divorced. Oh man, the new generations, man, this is crazy.
But also a malleable character, reshaped to resonate with contemporary audiences. If you want to learn more about ancient demonology, I'll be teaching an online course about exorcism in early Christianity, with a focus on the centuries after Jesus. We'll learn about how early Christians conceptualized demons, like what they actually thought demons were. We'll learn about what types of Christians functioned as exorcists, and we'll learn about the magical strategies that Christians used to nullify demons.
Bro, they had
yes,
magicians
early
back
Christians
in the day, bro.
did a lot of magic, and there's not much daylight between exorcism and magical practice. I'll be holding the class on October 26 at 9 o'clock p.m. U.S. East Coast time. To sign up, head on over to religionforbreakfast.eventbrite.com. As usual, you can pay whatever you want.
This guy's yapping. Guys, this is the end of the video. Hope you guys really thought about it. You know, if you get away with any lesson today, is 1, probably don't name your child Lilith. 2, murdering babies I think is pretty bad. You know, getting divorced and served divorce papers on bowls multiple times throughout your lifetime, especially if you're like thousands of years old, bruh, you got some serious issues that you gotta confront. Some demons, you could say. And 3, birthing a bunch of kids and abandoning them though? Are we serious, bruh? You really need to just evaluate your life at that point. But I mean, to be fair, she existed back in the time when Adam was alive because she was the first wife, right? So that was when the dinosaurs were there and stuff. Do you think the BBWs were there as well? Oh, also, was Adam like 90 feet tall or something? Bro, I be seeing on the interwebs, they're always talking about that. Like the bridge, like he built a bridge across some big river or something. I don't know. Let me know about that. Anyways, whatever. Cool Guy out.